Welcome back to the channel. This is Freddy Storm and you are watching third part of What If Naruto Was Denied to be a ninja but still overpowered. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time. Let's start the story.
Konoha. When Jiraiya came into the clearing, Naruto was in the middle of teaching Hinata how to control her speed and strength when her weight seals were all down. The Toad Sage looked at Hinata with interest as she did the painfully slow kata for the gentle fist. She was standing on a bed of senbon with no shoes on. He noticed that she wasn't wearing her usual purple jacket. Instead, she was wearing a tight black shirt that stopped at her midriff and dark blue ninja trousers. He didn't know that she had tight chest bindings under her shirt to make sure that her growing breasts wouldn't throw off her balance. He did notice that her arms, up to her fingers, and her stomach were all wrapped in bandages. This was probably because she had been practicing tenketsu so hard. A month had passed since the Chunin exams, and Konoha was still sad about the Sandame's death. It was true what Orochimaru said. The level of toxins in the old man's body was too much for his weak immune system to handle. At least he was glad the man died without any trouble. The girl kept training, even though she had known for a long time that he was there. She slowly moved her palm forward and then back to her shoulders. Then she lifted her right leg forward and spun on her left foot to do a passable roundhouse kick, which was definitely not in the gentle fist taijutsu style. The man raised an eyebrow at that and then made a small frown as he thought about when Naruto had started training the girl. The boy's empty wheelchair was under a tree, and Hinata's purple coat was folded neatly on the seat. He knew Naruto was training her because he had seen how Kurenai trained her team. This was much harder, and he knew the Hyuga heiress would not put herself through this on purpose. When he asked, "Where is Naruto?" the girl slowly moved her right foot off the senbon and pointed to her left. "Thank you," she said, and went back to her own training. Jiraiya decided to be serious for once and went into the small group of trees. He found Naruto relaxing on a tree branch and looking down at a young girl with brown hair, who was probably 8 years old. She wore shorts that were brown and a black shirt. The girl was sitting in the middle of the small clearing with her legs crossed and her hands together in a horizontal position. Naruto looked at him, said, "Hello, Jiraiya-sama," and waved for the girl to keep meditating when she opened her eyes. Naruto sat on the branch and looked at the older man. "To what do I owe this visit?" Jiraiya crossed his arms and said, "A better question is why you are training the Hyuga and the Kurama heiress." Naruto just shrugged and said, "I don't see how that has anything to do with you." He didn't even flinch when the war veterans stared at him. "Why are you here again?" "I came to tell you that we have a mission," said the man. "I remember very clearly that the Sandame wouldn't let me join the academy." "I'm sure he told you that," the younger sealmaster said as he threw a pair of earbuds to Yakumo Kurama when she opened her eyes again. "Focus, Yakumo," he said, and the girl nodded quietly, plugged her ears, and went back to meditating. In his special clearing, he found the girl about to cut her throat with a kitchen knife. He stopped her just in time with his snake rope. She tried to kill herself because her mentor wouldn't let her become a ninja because she had a demon locked up inside her. She told him that she had wanted to be a ninja since before she could walk. However, after her mentor found her in a pool of blood from the main branch of her clan, he sealed up most of her chakra, leaving her with just enough to live. The woman did this with a heavy heart, ready to take on all of the hate from the younger girls instead of putting it on Konoha. Even though she tried to kill herself, her case reminded Naruto of himself. He had always wanted to be a ninja and had tried everything he could with Fuinjutsu to get there. However, the person he once looked up to told him he was too weak to be a ninja and stopped him from becoming one. The boy had asked her grudgingly if she wanted to learn from him. He called for Hinata and made her show how much she had grown since she started training 2.5 months ago. Thank goodness, she said yes. The physical and mental problems of the heiress of the Kurama family were worse than Hinata's. Even though she was the Kurama heiress, she had mostly kept to herself in her clan. Her confidence wasn't as high as Hinata's, and Naruto's toes were stronger than Yakumo's whole body, which was saying a lot since the boy didn't know any taijutsu styles. But Naruto didn't back down from a challenge. He thought it was because of his Uzumaki genes. First, he tore the chakra seal off of her. Then, he taught her how to meditate while keeping an eye on them in case her inner demon came out. Before he could make a good seal against the demon, the boy insisted on finding out what it could do. He turned back to the Sannin and looked at him suspiciously for an answer to his question. When we found you, you were in the middle of sleeping sound, Shinobi, and all of your guards were dead, Naruto said with a shrug. Word got out that you were a Jinchuriki, and the council decided that it would be best for your safety if you had the strongest guard. Wouldn't it be best if I was left alone? Asked the blonde boy, raising an eyebrow. I did more than my guards, he said in the air, which made the Sannin laugh. The fact is that I still need you to be with me as long as I can. Naruto stared at the man for a full minute, which made his forehead start to sweat. What else did the Sandaime ask for? The man's shoulders sagged, giving up the act. That I teach you how to handle Kyuubi's chakra, he said, is a lie. I can learn that on my own, he told his youngest student. Have you opened it yet? His eyes got very big in shock. Naruto made a silly hand motion at his side and said, more or less. What does that mean, then? That means I've met the beast and we've made a deal, he said slowly, as if he were talking to a small child. You met Kyuubi. Naruto rolled his eyes and said, yes, he's nice, but that's not the point. I want to walk around outside the village. What is our mission? He used another air quote. Jiraiya chose to put off talking about how the boy had unlocked the Kyuubi's chakra until later. The Sandaime says he wants us to go get Tsunade Senju, said the slug Sannin. He knew that Naruto wouldn't be surprised by anything, and Naruto's simple nod proved him right. In addition to the fact that he wants her to become the Godem, there are a lot of injured ninja. When are we going? Wednesday at noon. I will be there. I guess I still won't be a ninja, right? I'm sorry, kid, he said, making a gesture with his hand. How long can you walk? About 5 hours, I can run for 4, Jiraiya said, knowing that he was being sent away. He then left the clearing and went to where he usually spent his free time. At the end of Hinata's training, he gave her an A-rank water jutsu to perfect and told her to learn and master as many Hyuga taijutsu attacks as she could. He gave the shy Yakumo to Hinata, who was still getting better, and told the older girl to take care of the younger girl while he was gone. He then gave Hinata a scroll with body-locking seals and chakra-draining seals to knock the girl out if Yakumo's inner demon showed up. He told her that black veins going up Yakumo's neck would be the first sign that something was wrong. Even though Daku's shadow clones were keeping an eye on the girl at night. Hinata decided to be the bigger girl and promised to watch out for her friend. She also said she would watch over the girl's training while he was gone. Naruto thought about his own skills as he and the talkative Jiraiya left the village. He was a level 9 master of Fuinjutsu, which meant that the simple barrier seals he made were almost impossible to break through if the attacker had less chakra than him. He got his shield seal tattooed on the backs of his arms and shins. On his calf, he got what he called tree root seals, which were new seals he made. These seals basically made his legs stronger in the ground so that he could block an attack from someone bigger than him. The tree root seals caused Naruto's chakra roots to stick his legs to the ground and made his arm muscles much stronger, but only for blocks. The shields could also be used as cutting weapons. He had a seal between his shoulders called the iron blue bubble seal. If something or someone came at him too quickly for him to raise his shields, the seal would go off on its own. The bubble shield was made by combining his wind and water chakra into multiple seal complexes that were stacked on top of each other. This meant that when an attacker or object hit the bubble, it either bounced off or, if it was slow enough, entered but looked like it was swimming in a pool of thick syrup. This seal saved him when the one tail hit him with a huge backhand and threw him into a wall. He could turn on the seals himself to soften his falls if he chose to. When Naruto was in Wave, he asked a local tailor to make him his usual baggy black trousers and blue and black long-sleeved shirt. He also asked for a blue scarf in case he ever ended up in a desert. The young tailor was very happy that his country had been freed and that the economy was doing well again. He didn't question the fact that Daku, who was known as part of Wave's savior, did what the young boy asked. Assuming that he was the real leader and addressing him as such was the right thing to do. Naruto had already made peace with himself, telling himself that if anyone ever found out that he was the leader, his seals would help him get out of Konoha, and Zabuza, Haku, and Daku would take him to Wave. The blonde seal master could throw punches and kicks pretty well, but he didn't know any taijutsu moves. But that didn't bother him because his body and clothes were full of secrets, counterattacks, booby traps, and defensive seals in case the frontline seals failed. Just to be safe, he changed his X contact seal and Daku's creation scroll so he could send a tingle to Daku if he was ever in trouble and vice versa. The loyal Dark Shadow would quickly follow the signal to him and come to his aid. Yes, Naruto didn't really need a guard anymore, and Deku didn't either since he was in Wave governing on his horse, but Jiraiya would let the man have his fun if that's what he wanted. Also, he was getting to see other places, which was fine with him. A pair of yellow eyes watched the two travelers as they walked towards Tanzuki town. Zetsu kept his eyes on Naruto, the younger traveler. He had seen his fight with the One-Tails and was pretty sure he could have killed the Sand Tanuki faster if he had wanted to. The boy was much better at his craft than he thought he would be. At first, he thought he would give up Fuinjutsu when he saw how hard it was. He would have to find a way to get Nagato to leave early to find him. Black Zetsu melted into the ground as he thought about leaving. Root base of operations. Konoha. A woman with a white mask that had no features knelt down in front of a man. The man wore a formal kimono that covered his whole left side and his feet. His right arm, which was wrapped in bandages, held his cane. A bandage was also wrapped around half of the man's face. The woman didn't flinch when Danzo gave her a hard look while she waited to speak. Mole, report, Danzo droned. Wave is a country with a lot of natural resources and a growing economy that is still recovering from what Gato did to it. The ninja there are incredibly strong and the defenses on the walls as well as the defense on the water boundary are almost impossible to get past, which is why I am the only one to have survived. When we touched the walls, it seemed like a lightning field formed around us, and I jumped out of the way in time. My friends were fried before I did. I'll punish you later, Mole. What about the leadership there? Do you know who runs Wave? No, Danzo-sama, no one would talk about it, and the Wave leader's tower has too many defense seals, some of which I couldn't even find, so I couldn't get in there without dying. This mysterious leader who is bringing that cesspool back to life is very good at what he does, and he already has strong ninjas working for him. That is very questionable, he said to himself. Tell me honestly, is it possible to infiltrate again? Mole was quiet for a few minutes. No, Danzo-sama. As I was leaving disguised as a worker, I saw someone checking on the seals behind the walls and a few other people going into the water, probably to check on the seals there. I think they are improving the defense. Wave is too strong defensively to infiltrate, Danzo-sama, he said. The man tried not to stare at her and asked, how are you so ready, Wave leader? Report to Fu for your punishment, he turned around and said. I'll have your great strength, Wave, but not right now. I'll get my men ready to take it from you and make it mine. For Konoha. Mole stood up and walked down the semi-dark tunnels of Root headquarters. Her mind was racing. Naruto had given her this mission because she had sworn her loyalty to him, along with the other three. She was the most skilled of the three reformed Root Anbu, which meant that she was more likely to get past Danzo's defenses and trackers, so that Danzo would think she had survived. The boy put a mind block seal on her in case a Yamanaka ever searched her memories and found the fake ones instead of the real ones. The seal was still being tested, since there were no Yamanaka around to test it on. The boy told her that the seal would at least make it hard to read her thoughts or control her actions. Mouse didn't think she would ever look up to someone younger than her, but Naruto's show of Fuinjutsu mastery and control over Deku, the strongest creature she had ever seen in her 19 years of life and 14 years of service in Root, changed her mind. As a reward for her loyalty, the boy sealed off her pain nerve endings and gave her the key to turn them back on if she ever wanted to. The young Fuinjutsu expert had promised to free her from Root if he had all the information he needed. Her fellow reformed Root ninja were back in Wave. Naruto had set Rat to look over his academy as a teacher and the headmaster. He's still very much wary of the ninja since the man spilled the beans so quickly. He placed a body lock seal on the back of his neck if he ever raised his hand to beat a comrade with the tattoo given to all that were allowed to visit Wave and all of Wave's citizens. The seal was connected directly to his brain, so if he was going to punish a student justly it won't stop him. He had also placed a parole seal under the first seal, which blocked him off from certain places like the Dark Headquarters, Wave's equivalent to Anbu, also to the S-rank section of the library, Wave's water and electricity distribution centers and to Wave's main forge. The man, feeling truly repentant to all he had done against his will, tried his best to prove to Naruto that he meant no harm. Teaching the academy students all he knew which were at their current level. He also willingly asked for a loyalty seal. Frog, the other reformed Root ninja, was more trusted than Rat because he also asked for a loyalty seal. Frog was put in charge of sorting through official documents before they were brought to Deku or Naruto. He was also added to the active ninja roster and given B-rank missions, which were supervised by Zabuza. He was happy with his position in Wave. Naruto didn't want to send Rat back as a spy because he still didn't trust him not to tell. Instead, he sent Mole, whose name is the funniest thing in the world. She was a mid-level ninja in taijutsu and speed, but she was a high-level ninja when her pain nerves were turned off and she used her ninjutsu skills. She gave Fu Yamanaka a silent nod and walked into Root's conditioning room. This was a place where people who failed their missions or didn't do a good job were punished mentally or physically. The solid wood door slammed shut behind her, but she didn't flinch. Country music. Daku, dressed as the leader of Wave, was at Naruto's desk going over permissions to start building or remodeling different buildings in the country. He hummed and looked over a document asking for another hotel to be built for visiting fishermen and farmers, then he looked at Wave's general accounts and nodded in thought, stamped the approval for construction to begin, and brought out another document. Frog? The ninja named Frog was sitting on a smaller desk next to Daku's, Naruto's, and reading the growing mission reports of Zabuza, the Demon Brothers, Haku, and Daku's shadow clones. His plain mask was off to show his pudgy facial features and a large green birthmark over his left eye and almost over his cheek, which is why he was named Frog by Danzo. He had a slim, average body build, going against the yes, Daku-sama, the man stuttered after looking at his leader with wide, surprised eyes. Dark Shadow leaned back in his chair and rested his head on his right fist. Do you think it's a good idea to build a mall in the middle of Wave? He looked at Frog. Uma. Tell me what you really think. Frog rubbed his cheek and calmed his heart. I think a mall is a good idea, he said. If we have a mall, merchants would have a set place to sell their goods, even if it's raining or too hot outside. A mall is a good idea because it is a place where you can buy more than just food and furniture. Can you think of anything else that could be in the mall? Restaurants that can't afford to build separate buildings, toy stores for kids, a place for kids and adults to play, and more. With more money in circulation, I'm sure the mall would be a popular place for Wave to meet. Daku looked down at the paper and looked over the mall's plans. He saw that there was room for everything the ninja had mentioned and also room for the mall to grow. You seem to know a lot about this kind of thing, Frog, he wrote with his pen. I saw a mall in Snow Country when we were going to hit and chill on my last mission. He and Haku had been sent to deliver a batch of security seals to protect Snow Country's borders. These seals were sealed in a large storage scroll, and they also brought with them instructions on how to use them. The mission was a success, except for a small problem when bandits tried to ambush them just outside Snow Country's borders. After calculating the loss from Wave's accounts, Naruto's representative as leader nodded and stamped his approval on the document. I will be putting you in charge of looking over the builders for this mall, supervising the progress, and reporting any problems directly to me, he said as he wrote a note on a scroll telling the mall's contractor that Frog was also in charge. He then wrote a letter to the head fisherman that when the mall was finished, the fisherman should. The man stood up and bowed. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. I sure hope not. A mile away from the town of Tanzuki. How much longer can this guy talk? Naruto, whose face was as blank as a slate, clenched his fists and kept marching forward, doing his best to ignore what Jiraiya was saying. Then I grabbed him by the neck and said, "Little boy, I was a good ninja before you could walk." And I slammed him into the ground. He laughed loudly. Of course, the guy passed out from my awesomeness. Naruto grunted and looked at Gaki from the corner of his eye. Yes? Want to see a cool thing? Without waiting for an answer, Jiraiya dramatically held out his hand, where a blue chakra ball began to spin and swirl. Cool, huh? It's called the Rasengan, and it was created by the fourth. He was sorely disappointed when Naruto only pursed his lips and raised his eyebrows when he asked, "Want to learn it?" "No, I'm good," he said, turned around, and kept walking. The man looked straight down at the ground and said, "What? Don't you want to know this?" He slammed his Rasengan into a tree and smiled proudly when it exploded into pieces. He looked at Naruto and his sweat dropped when he saw that the boy had his shield up to block the wood splinters. That was less than half of its power, you know, he said. Naruto put down his shield and crossed his arms. This is like Kakashi's Chidori, right? Kakashi himself said that this is better than the Chidori. The blonde seal master scratched his chin and thought, I think I can make a Fuin ninjutsu that is as good as or even better than that. What? Impossible. Minato worked for a long time to make and master the Rasengan. Why do you think you can do better than him? Naruto just shrugged and kept walking. Jiraiya ran up to him and asked, wouldn't it be simpler to just learn it? Why do you keep trying to teach me? I just said I didn't need it, the man said in a childish way, scuffing his feet. I thought so. Okay, then. If you make something as good as or better than the Rasengan, I'll make you my apprentice. If you lose, you have to learn the Rasengan and become my apprentice. A better bet. If I win, you won't bother me, and if I lose, I'll learn the Rasengan, right? Both of them said, I'll take what I can get, shook hands, and walked into Tanzuki town. As usual for their mission, they went to a big casino and looked around. Naruto tried to get Jiraiya's attention when he saw a big busted blonde woman sitting alone at a booth. Is she there? Let's go check, they said as they pushed their way through the crowded casino and stood over the woman with the blurry eyes. Look, I told you, I don't have your money, she mumbled as she looked at him, but she was no longer drunk when she said, oh, it's you. The white-haired Sannin sat down next to her and gestured for Naruto to do the same. Instead, Naruto took a chair from a drunk man and sat down. Glad to see you still love me, Su-chan, he said with a smile, wincing when the woman stepped on his foot. Jiraiya, what are you doing here? Who the hell is he? She asked as she poured sake into her mouth. She looked quickly at Naruto. I don't know if you know this, but Sarutobi-sensei has died. Dead, huh, her shoulders sagged, another one bites the dust. He wanted you to be Godem. She rudely snorted, over my dead body. What's going on, Tsunade-chan? I see what happened now, she snapped and glared at Jiraiya. I lost Nawaki and Dan to the shinobi life, and now sensei is gone. She sat up straight. Sannin, the toad, kept his cool and said, they all died honorably, fighting for what they cared about. They gave their lives to protect us, Tsunade-chan. She slowly sat back down and chugged a mouthful of sake. They didn't have to. There was nothing to protect, the will of fire died with Hashirama Oji-san, she said. The will of fire still burns bright in the leaf. It will always burn bright as long as there are people to look out for the future, the woman snorted again. You really let yourself go, Tsunade-chan. The woman just shrugged and looked back at Naruto. Are you having fun, brat? Naruto nodded and gave her a smile that was almost too small to see. Yes, very much so, he said. Tsunade slammed her fists on the table and gave the young boy a mean look. You've got a lot of nerve, brat, she said. So I've been told, he said in a sharp tone. You think you're so smart and so sure of yourself, she said. Naruto shrugged and nodded. Yes. Jiraiya is right, Tsunade-sama. The history books say that you are a powerful Kanochi who can knock down mountains with a single punch. Now, though, I think the history books have made a big deal out of something that happened a long time ago. The woman stood up and said, I'll have you know I'm stronger than ever. Naruto rolled her eyes and took a sip of the water she had asked for. I doubt that. You're being very rude, brat, she said as she smacked his glass of water out of his hand and smashed it against the booth's wall. Knocking my glass of water out of my hand is rude and disrespectful, Tsunade-sama, he said, pointing to the broken pieces of his glass cup on the ground. I want you to calm down before you do something you'll regret. What can a spoiled child like you do? I bet I can beat with just my finger, she said, waving her index finger near his face. It was clear she was trying to get him angry, but she failed. I'd prefer not to. Oh yeah, you're scared of getting beat up by a girl, Naruto said. He wanted to point out that she was a woman, not a girl, and that the alcohol in her system was making her talk. He looked at the woman, who was smirking arrogantly, and smirked lightly. It's been a while since I worked out my legs. If I win, you'll go back to Konoha with us and take over as Godem. And if I win, you pay off all my debts, she said as dark shadows came out from under her fringe. I mean all of my debts. Jiraiya finally spoke up because he thought the boy didn't have any money. He said, Su-chan, I don't think. It's fine, I agree, Naruto said as he got up from the table and pointed to the casino's exit. The slug Sannin humped and walked out quickly, followed by the toad Sannin and Naruto. Just as the woman walked in, she pushed a smaller girl holding a pig back out with her. People on the empty street seemed to sense that there was going to be a fight. You got jelly legs or something? Come at me, you little brat. She said, crossing her arms and putting one finger up in the air. Why don't you try to hurt me? Are you scared? The boy strangely imitated her in an attempt to get the drunk Sannin angry, which he did. The woman growled and ran at the boy with mid-chunin speed, her right pointer finger leading the attack. Tsunade-sama, no. Shizune yelled after her boss who was attacking. Under the seal master's baggy trousers, a spiral seal came to life on his calves, and his blue rectangular shield came out of his right forearm in a spiral. The woman smashed her finger against the shield with a powerful flick, but nothing happened. Not even a speck of dust was kicked up, and silence fell everywhere. He, Shizune whispered to Jiraiya as she sobbed quietly. He stood in her way. Impossible. Behind his blue shield and his seal-enhanced forearms, Naruto smiled slightly as he saw the slug Sannin's shock. He lifted his left leg, which had a clump of dirt on it, and swung it at her, hitting her left arm and knocking her off balance. She tried to get her balance back and flicked the boy again when he ran at her with his shield. The tree root seals only stopped him from. Naruto squinted his eyes and blocked another flick, jabbing Tsunade in the stomach with his free hand and pushing her back with his seal-enhanced forearm. As she fell back, he briefly turned off the seals on his calves, jumped into the air, and brought the edge of his shield down on the ground. The attack shook the ground and cracked up to the woman. Tsunade gritted her teeth and smashed a finger. The silver snake rope hit her hard on the ground and threw her into the side of a building, leaving a body mark. The rope quickly wrapped around her and squeezed. Tsunade coughed and fought against the Fuinjutsu-enhanced ropes, but it was pointless. The younger seal master pulled her to him and pressed the edge of his shield against her neck to show her how sharp it was. I win, we'll pick you up tomorrow, he said as he yanked the rope away from her and smiled when she spun in the air and landed on the ground with blurry eyes and feeling dizzy. The boy calmly walked past the people staring at him and went to a nearby hotel. He didn't care if the Toad Sage helped his teammate pick up her pride. He just wanted to eat and maybe start working on that Fuin ninjutsu he had bet with Jiraiya. He got his own room and ordered room service. An hour later, he was done with his lunch of ramen and was sipping green tea and tracing his. If it was Jiraiya, then the other person must have been Tsunade, but if that was the case, why wasn't the smaller girl with them? Why did one have fire affinity and the other earth affinity? When the people at the door knocked again, he stood up, put his arm behind his back, and opened the door. When he saw who was there, he kept his face blank. Itachi said calmly, "Hello, Naruto-kun," and Kisame smiled next to him. "Would you be so kind as to come with us?" However, Naruto wasn't looking at him. Instead, he was looking at Kisame and the bandages on his back that were shaking. He said, "Great," in a low voice. When Naruto saw the infamous bloody Uchiha traitor and the zero-tailed beast, the first thing he did was slam the door in their faces. "Well, that was rude," Kisame grunted. "Do you want to break down the door, or should I?" "Be my guest," Itachi said with a shrug. Kisame pulled his fist back and let it fly at the door. As soon as it hit, a loud gong sound rang out. "It seems like we have a seal master on our hands." "It looks like it," Kisame said, and he took the sentient sword on his back and put it on the door. Samahata could be seen sucking Naruto's blue chakra out of the door before the door fell in on itself. "Well, that's that," he said as he walked into the hotel room, only to find the window open and a white curtain blowing inside. "He ran away," Itachi said blankly. Kisame grunted, "Well, let's go after him. Samahata can sniff him out." The two ninja jumped out of the window. Naruto was running as fast as he could to where Tsunade and Jiraiya were last seen, hoping to Kami that they were still there. Why did Hoshigaki Kisame have to be the one? Again, the streets were empty because people knew there was going to be a fight. He ran to where the Sannin and the younger girl had been seen last, and when he didn't find them, he cursed very loudly. He had also been sending quick tingles into the X seal on his belly. Where is that guy when you really need him? It had to be a seal master's natural enemy that came to take him away. Why did it have to be Kisame? He groaned again. If he got through this without getting hurt, he promised himself that he would have a backup plan against the man. He hadn't planned to meet the man, but fate seemed to have something against him. "It's rude to leave when you have guests over, Naruto-kun," a smooth voice said from a few feet behind him. He turned around and avoided looking at Itachi's eyes in case his Sharingan was on. He had read everything he could about the bloody Uchiha traitor. He knew that the man rarely turned off his Sharingan and that it could make illusions that made people lose their minds. He wasn't very good at making illusions, since he now has 3 times as much chakra as Sannin did and is still getting stronger. He was at least glad that he had a great way to stop any man's speed. His blue iron bubble could keep Deku from getting inside, and it would only break after many chakra and Deku boosted blows. Yeah, it's also rude to leave through your window, Kisame said sarcastically in response to what Itachi had said. I know, right? He said in agreement with what Samahada had said. Naruto decided to stay calm as long as he could. When Deku showed up, he would give them his all and ask, "What do you want with me?" Itachi said, "You don't need to know that. Come peacefully or we'll have to use force. And if you want to get violent, I'll cut your legs off from under you," Kisame said with a laugh. "I'm not going anywhere," he said as he flew through 3 hand seals and muttered, "Ninja art, Fuinjutsu, child of paper chaos." The boy then threw his arms out, palms facing his opponents, and paper flew out of his sleeves like shuriken, spinning violently fast towards the two. Boom. When Deku felt a tingle in his stomach, his head shot up. The tingle turned into a loud hum that said, "Naruto-sama needs help." He got up, which surprised Frog, and put his cloak on his chair. "I have to go, Frog," he said. Frog jumped to his feet and said, "Deku-sama, where are you going?" "You have a meeting with the civilian council in 3 hours." He wouldn't believe Deku if he said he needed a break, because in all the time he had known the Enigma, Deku had never needed a break. "Naruto-sama is in trouble. I'll be back soon, but reschedule the meeting if I'm not here on time." "This is a much bigger deal." Frog bowed and said, "I understand, Deku-sama, and do you want me to come along?" Here, Deku laughed and said, "You won't be able to keep up, Frog," and Frog nodded in agreement. The dark shadow jumped out of Naruto's office window and hopped from roof to roof until it reached the main gate. He let Haku and Zabuza, who had just returned from a mission, know that he would be back soon. The dark shadow raised his right hand in a one-handed ram seal, and the spiral seals on the backs of his hands and heels lit up and broke, making it look like Deku was lifting off the ground right in front of their eyes. Deku disappeared with a loud crack that sounded like lightning. "Wow. He never fails to surprise me," Haku murmured, fingering his blue Chunin flak jacket idly. "I'm not," Zabuza grunted, putting on Wave's Junin flak jacket. "He beat me, remember?" Haku giggled. Deku was flying so fast through the forest that he could use tree leaves and grass blades as footholds. As the number of trees and bushes grew, he zigzagged around them. He didn't even go around the brush. He hummed and flew past the border of Konoha, making a path where Naruto and Jiraiya had been. He let his gut feeling lead him to his master. His eyes saw Naruto fighting with the members of the Akatsuki. Samahada was pulled out of the fire and swung at Naruto. The sword shook and sucked up the fire and spat it back at Naruto. The boy blocked it with his blue shield, which made the ball of fire bounce back to Kisame. Itachi could not be found. Kisame grinned and ran over to the young boy with his sword raised to shave some skin off Naruto. He raised his eyebrows when Naruto slapped his palms together and yelled, "Push!" as his next defensive-offensive move. The blue iron bubble hummed dangerously around him and grew away from his body, shaking the ground and throwing the missing ninja back hard. The blue bubble came back to Naruto. Deku jumped down at Kisame from what looked like a building. "Neat trick," the man said as he got to his feet and pulled his sword back to whip it at Naruto and drain his chakra. However, Deku attacked him, and he had to cross Samahada across his body to block it. The dark shadow's arm was cut off right away, and the chakra tube full of chakra was sucked out right away, but he wasn't worried. He jumped back and quickly reshaped his arm, asking, "Who are you?" The dark shadow didn't answer. Instead, he raised his arms and started firing stone stakes at Kisame. The man had to run lengthwise to get away from the attacks. He saw Itachi standing behind Naruto, poking at the barrier seal around him. When Naruto slapped his hands together again, Itachi jumped back. This child is smart. His distraction cost him. A Deku rock clone gripped his feet from underground, tripping him. The S-rank ninja cursed and fought against the iron grip, which made it easy for Deku to sneak up on him and kick his sword arm's shoulder. Around the clearing, a loud, bone-chilling crack could be heard. Kisame bit his tongue so he wouldn't scream, but he swung his sword weakly at Deku with the plan to cut him in half and drain all of his chakra. The annoying rock clone stood still with his hands on his feet, but he didn't care. He was so angry that his eyes looked like they were going to pop out of their sockets as he swung his sword around and willed it to reach Deku. He did this with his arm that didn't have a sword. Itachi, his partner, was still trying to get around Naruto's ultimate defense, but he wasn't having much luck. Itachi. The calm man sighed quietly and turned around, away from Naruto's blank but proud face. "Hello, foolish little brother," he said. "I'll kill you, Itachi." Sasuke screamed and ran at his older brother with a Chidori. Itachi skillfully moved out of the way and let the attack smash Naruto's blue shell again, frowning slightly when only a small crack appeared and disappeared right away, as if it had never been there. His Sharingan told him that the boy's chakra was used to make the barrier, which was powered by a seal on his back. "You were always too weak," he said as he grabbed his brother's outstretched arm and bent it behind his back. "I'll kill you." The last loyal Uchiha hissed and fought against being held. "Let me go and fight, damn it." "You will never beat me, stupid little brother," he said as he hit the back of Sasuke's head and poked a nerve in his neck. Sasuke was about to snap and foam was coming out of his mouth. Itachi let go of the boy's arm and watched as the boy fell to the ground without a bone in his body. When he saw Jiraiya and Tsunade running towards them, he turned his head and made a small scowl. He looked over his shoulder and frowned when he saw that his partner, Kisame, was stuck to the ground and swinging his sword wildly after the dark shadow. Again, Deku disappeared and reappeared in front of Kisame. He hit the man in the chest with his fist and threw him far into the town with the rock clone still holding on to his feet. Just as Deku went after him, the two Sannin showed up. Jiraiya looked down at Sasuke, who was sleeping, and at Naruto, who was grinning stoically. "What are you doing here, Itachi?" he asked. He stood with his arms crossed, and Tsunade did the same. "Just stopping by to see Naruto-kun, and then I'll be on my way." He trailed off as Naruto slapped his hands together again, and the boy's blue bubble sent him straight to the Sannin. Itachi didn't even want to take a chance against two legendary Sannin, so his Sharingan eyes spun wildly and merged into the shuriken like Mangekyo Sharingan. He said, "Amaterasu," closed one eye, and super hot black flames shot out of the other eye, spiraling towards the Sannin pair. The Sannin jumped away from the attack and looked back to where they had seen Itachi last. When they didn't see him there, they glared at each other but didn't say anything. He looked down at what was left of the strange-looking black flames and put it away to study later. Tsunade was giving Naruto the evil eye. Naruto had his eyes on her. "What?" asked the blonde boy. "How did you keep 2S rank missing ninja at bay?" "Fuinjutsu. Just like how I beat you," the woman said, clenching her hands so hard that his knuckles cracked. She tried not to get angry, saying, "I was holding back, you brat," but Naruto's bored face made her angry. Naruto brushed her off with a flippant hand gesture and said, "Whatever you say." The boy seemed to enjoy making her angry, and her responses, no matter how small, were always funny. "Ba-chan." "Oh no, he didn't." Jiraiya said in shock. "Why, you little," she reached out to strangle the boy, but the toad sage pulled her back. "I'm at my best, damn it." Sure, whatever," he said, turned around, and went back to his hotel room, making sure to seal it up again. It didn't look good for the S-rank Nuke Nin with Kisame and Deku around. After he crashed into the ground and shakily got back up, Deku used an attack he had just learned to throw him away. The dark shadow ran at him at half his normal speed and lifted his legs off the ground, pulling his knees up to his chest. Even though he wasn't running anymore, he flew like a missile through the air and hit Kisame in the face. Naruto called it the cannonball, because Deku was in a ball, but he was moving through the air at about 170 miles per hour in a horizontal direction. After the impact, blood came out of Kisame's mouth, but he still got up with Samahata still in his iron grip. When he saw Deku tilt his head to the side in confusion and saw that the Shark Man was still alive, he swung his sword at him. As it chased Deku, the shaking sword cut a deep groove in the ground. The dark shadow flipped backwards over the sword and fired two spikes of stone at Kisame while he was still in the air. The man moved his hands out of the way of the stones and frowned when he saw them break through the wall of a house. The man called his sword back to him and was about to break a few seals to kill the bug when a firm hand on his shoulder stopped him. He knew right away who it was. "We have to go, because the Sannin are coming." Kisame stayed put and glared at Deku with all the hate he could muster. Deku took a strong stance because he thought the man would take advantage of his hatred, but he grumbled when they both jumped onto a roof and vanished. "I will find him." And I'm going to kill him, Kisame said, gripping the handle of his sword painfully. When he felt some of his broken ribs move inside him and lightly poke his lungs, he grunted in pain. Samahata was in his limp, broken hand, so Itachi could help his partner run or walk by putting his other arm over his shoulder. Itachi gave a soft sigh and said, I know. Daku shrugged and dropped to the ground in a sprinting position. He grabbed the ground with his hands and jumped forward, disappearing as soon as his feet left the ground. That night, Naruto didn't sleep much. As usual, he decided to sleep for only 2 hours and spend the rest of the night studying his level 9 training scroll and choosing seals to break. All he could think about was making an attack as good as or better than the Rasengan. The young seal master reached forward, grabbed a clear sheet of paper, and drew a standard storage seal on it. He then drew an explosion seal on another clear sheet of paper and drew a clean circle around it to show that it was also a contained explosion. He used his brush to tap his chin and then flipped through the training scroll to get more ideas. He sighed when he didn't find much help, so he decided to break seals apart and make simple seals that he could put together to make a more complicated seal.
Naruto took a deep breath and thought about what he wanted his seal to do.
Then he started drawing chakra affinity storage seals in a seal to mix the affinities together. He drew a circle over each affinity storage to show that they were separate, then a thick line connecting them to the center to show that they could be mixed with controlled effort. The soft blue glow of the ink he used showed the tiny, almost invisible seals in each stroke. He took the other 2 clear papers with seals on them and put them gently on top of the multi-affinity paper. The seals lit up in a soft red, and Naruto switched them so that the explosive seal would be on top and the chakra storage seal would be under the affinity seal.
It gave off a soft blue light, and he smiled very big.
He then took out another clear sheet of paper and started putting together another seal to keep the attack in until it reached its target and let out all of its power. He put that on top of the complicated seal and nodded again when it turned blue to show that the right combination had been found. He hunched over the seal and put his index fingers on opposite corners. Here goes nothing, he said, bracing himself for an explosion. Instead, a small puff of smoke rose over him. He coughed and waved the smoke away from his face. Much better than I expected, he said. He looked down at the seal and frowned. Something is missing. Yes, the simple seals mixed together well, and the strokes made a larger but still different seal. But it still didn't look
Finished.
He scratched his cheek and ran his pale blonde hair through his fingers as he tried to figure out what was wrong with his custom creation. He added a custom-made seal to his attack to make it faster, hit harder, and be more powerful overall, but there was still something wrong with the complex seal. He could bet his kidneys that the seal worked very well, and he knew for sure that the attack would come as a surprise. He thought for a moment, then tapped his brush on the seal. His head snapped up, and he quickly, but carefully, traced his fingers over the seal until the multi-affinity seal showed up at the top. Then he drew a small circle around each connection and let himself have a quiet laugh. The multi-affinity seal melted back into the complex seal, which was pretty big.
The 12-year-old boy leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes.
Now where do I test this? He opened one eye and saw that the sun was just coming over the horizon. Is it already morning? He asked. He got up from his chair and stretched, making sure to focus on his dead but still very much alive leg as he did lunges and squats. He got in the shower and took a bath, then changed into his black baggy trousers and a deep blue shirt with black lines that crossed each other and a white Uzumaki whirlpool on the shoulders. He experimented by rolling his shoulders to see if he could still throw his arms out or raise his shields quickly enough. He agreed when it still fit with what he was doing.
He was about to reach over and grab his new seal when he felt a small shiver.
All I want is one day of peace, he said with a tired sigh. Before he left the room, the seal master took his newest custom complex and sealed it in his wrist. He didn't need to carry any bags because all of his belongings were sealed into storage seals on his arms and shoulders. He followed the small tracking seal he put on Jiraiya to the room directly across from his own. He thought the man knew he had a tracking seal on him but didn't want to take it off, maybe because he thought the boy was starting to like him. He didn't know that the boy wanted to know where the man was in case he ever caused trouble for them. His mind went back to a memory he had in the first town they went to. A group of prostitutes had surrounded the Sannin, so Naruto had to take care of himself and look for the slug Sannin all over the casino. The sweet temptresses got the man to follow them to the back of the casino, where they robbed him blind before he could say anything to tell them to stop. The kisses and licks on his neck and body made the man so nervous that he spent hours in the trash can where the women dumped him before Naruto found him. He knocked on the door and waited for the man to answer for 10 minutes. When he didn't, he frowned and knocked again, but still no one answered. The boy put his ear to the door and tried to hear what was going on inside, but there was nothing. He shook his head in frustration and slammed his shoulder 5 times into the door before it gave way. Before he saw the legendary Sannin half slumped on a bed, his eyes wandered around the dark room. Naruto walked up to the man and crossed his arms. "Wake up," he said. The man groaned and mumbled some words. Naruto kicked the man's leg and said, "Wake up, Tsunade is trying to escape." "Who?" The man rolled onto the ground and rubbed his face. "What did I do yesterday?" Naruto shrugged, and Jiraiya staggered to his feet, but he swayed and had to hold on to the wall. "Something feels wrong." He wrinkled his eyebrows and groaned again. "My chakra feels off." "You went out drinking with Tsunade-sama and she poisoned your chakra network," Naruto summarized correctly. "What did you expect from the woman that doesn't want anything to do with Konoha, and is going to be made Hokage of said village?" The young boy pinched his nose in irritation. "Why do you keep getting yourself into trouble, Jiraiya-sama?" The man had the decency to look sheepish, him too remembering their experience in Rilka Town, the first town they entered.
You said Tsunade is trying to escape.
He tried to change the subject, and Naruto let him by rolling his eyes. "Yes, can you run?" "I can, but my control of my chakras is shot to hell. I think the poison would wear off over time, but we have to work with what we have." "Lead the way, Gaki," the boy said as he ran to the hotel lobby and stopped at the desk of the receptionist. "We'd like to leave," he said, putting his and Jiraiya's room keys on the desk and handing them to the woman. "Your services here have been great, by the way." "Thank you, Naruto-sama. Will you be back?" The small receptionist asked as she gave the boy a clipboard to sign under leaving early, and took it back when Jiraiya did the same. They were leaving hours before they were supposed to. Naruto scratched his cheek and let out a small laugh. He then leaned towards the woman and whispered, "When I'm passing through." The woman said, "Oh," and gave him a secret thumbs up. The boy waved and went to the door with Sannin, the toad. "Gaki, you were keeping a lot to yourself." "We all have our secrets, Jiraiya-sama," they said. "She's going out the east door, so run straight ahead to the gate there." With Tsunade, the woman had most of her things with her, but the younger black-haired girl had more. "Tsunade-sama, why are we running again?" "You said we were going back to Konoha," she grumbled as she struggled to keep up with her mistress while carrying a large bag on her back, 2 sleeping bags under her arms, the pig tauntaun in his carrier, and a map in the other hand. Tsunade only had a bottle of water and a bag of money in her hands. The opening flap of the money bag had a picture of a toad on it, which seemed odd. "Shizune, I'm not going back to Konoha." But you're breaking the deal you made with Naruto-kun." "I don't care, that boy can go sucka." Shizune turned a deep crimson color and said, "Tsunade-sama." "For all I care," the woman said as if no one had stopped her. The voice that asked, "Oh, Tsunade, where are you going?" was silky and smooth, with just a hint of condescension. "Orochimaru," Tsunade said without turning around, "what do you want?" "Right to the point, classic Tsunade," said the snake Sannin as he walked to her, ignoring Shizune like she was a bug. When he stood in front of her, she could see that he was with a teen with gray hair and big glasses. "I need your medical expertise," he said. "Snake, I'm not going to help you." The man laughed, sending shivers down Tsunade and Shizune's backs. "Stubborn as always. I've always liked that about you," he said, coming close enough to kiss the woman's face. He tucked a strand of her blonde hair behind her ear. "But," he said, running his finger along her cheek, "I wasn't giving you a choice." He turned to the side and let the woman see Kabuto cut his wrist. When Tsunade saw the blood, she stopped in shock and began to sweat. Shizune put down the bags she was carrying and stood up. "Stand back. I'm warning you. You're out of your league, kid," Orochimaru laughed again. "Take care of her, Kabuto-kun," he said as he grabbed Tsunade by the hair and dragged her after him towards Hidden Sound. The woman was still too unconscious to move. The medic ninja said, "With pleasure, Orochimaru-sama," and then he walked towards the younger female medic ninja in a threatening way. The snake Sannin heard a light whistle, which made him raise his eyebrows and look around. Kabuto stopped moving and looked at his master with interest. Orochimaru looked up with wide eyes and said, "Oh shish," a small blue bird landed hard on him, pulling Tsunade out of his grasp and sending her away from the shockwave. The man winced and squinted into the blue bubble to see who had just landed on him. It felt like 200 pounds were pressing down on his chest, which wasn't too bad but was still annoying. He moved his arms to his chest and pushed the bubble up. His veins popped. Naruto laughed, then slapped his hands together and said, "Push." The man went deeper into the ground, and the huge surge of blue chakra tore up the ground around them, sending Kabuto and Shizune in opposite directions to get away from it. The Sannin, who was still alive, yelled, "Get off me." He blinked again and hissed, "Naruto." When he saw blonde hair and whiskers. The boy scratched his cheek and said, "I'll think about it," but when the man turned into a mud puddle, he groaned. The snake Sannin was very angry. Jiraiya ran up to his female teammate and gently slapped her face to get her to look at him. Su-chan, look at me," he said. When Kabuto tried to sneak up on him from behind, Jiraiya kicked him in the back. I. The woman stuttered, looking past the white-haired man to where Naruto and the snake Sannin were fighting, with Naruto's back to her. The toad Sannin also looked at the fight and tried to keep his chakra under control by clenching his hand. He went through a long chain of hand seals. Summoning jutsu. A small puff of smoke erupted from the ground in front of him, but he was annoyed when he saw a tadpole. "Ah, come on," he said, and he stopped the jutsu. Naruto blocked a kick with his right forearm shield and pushed the attacker back. As Orochimaru came at him again, he swung his earth-clumped legs at him. The older man bent away from the leg, but Naruto hit his palms together, sending him flying into a huge rock. "Stop doing that," he yelled with a spine-tingling scream. He leapt into the air, and snakes hissed out of his right arm and darted down towards Naruto. In response, Naruto jammed his square shield into the ground so it wouldn't move during the attack.
The boy clenched his teeth as he tried to keep the deadly snakes away from him and felt multiple Orochimaru mud clones punching and kicking his visible iron blue bubble.
He thought that if they kept attacking it for a few more minutes, it would give in to the pressure. Jiraiya. Anytime now. A small crack appeared on his right side. Jiraiya. He didn't want to call Deku because he was with two Sannin and a Sannin's apprentice. If the Toad Sage could get his partner out of her funk, maybe they would all live. His tree root seals were working overtime to keep him from falling back too far against the snake attacks. "I'm working on it, kid," he said as a small toad jumped out of the smoke and landed on his shoulder. "Give me a minute," he said again as the war veteran kicked Kabuto in the jaw. Shizune was in a hurry. She didn't want to help fight a Sannin, and she didn't know how to cheer up her mistress. She got down on her knees in front of Tsunade and snapped her fingers in front of her eyes, but the older woman kept looking at Naruto and said, "He's holding him back." Yes, he's trying to keep him back, but he can't do it for long without help," the younger woman said. "My help?" She slowly clenched her fists and dipped her head. "The brat needs my help." It was a funny idea, but she was in the middle of a fight. The girl nodded and said, "Yes, Orochimaru is too strong to be kept for much longer, and the poison you gave Jiraiya is messing with his chakra control. He needs your strength, Tsunade-sama." Shizune protected herself and her mistress from the effects of a massive earth release, pillars of the harsh underworld. The jutsu made it seem like huge, blunt pillars of earth were shooting out of the ground and repeatedly hitting the target like pistons. Along with the attacks from Orochimaru's mud clones and the Shadow Snake's attack, the rocks hit Naruto's ultimate defense hard. Naruto roared as he tried to keep everyone away. He couldn't just push them away because that would leave him open for even a second. Yeah.
Naruto put his free hand in his pocket and pulled out a seal on a very thick piece of paper.
"I never thought I'd use this," he said. He held the seal between his index and middle finger and yelled, "Jiraiya, start summoning." "But my chakra." "Just do it," he said, and he had to throw the seal at him over his right shoulder. Jiraiya sped through the seals, and just as one hit him in the chest, the man yelled his jutsu again, making a loud ticking sound. "Summoning jutsu," said the seal, which had a complicated 9-sided shape. At the same time, a cloud of chakra smoke exploded under him. "Now we're talking. Jiraiya. Why am I here?" Even Orochimaru stopped his attack to look up at the huge toad.
Snake Summoner.
He said, drawing his sword and taking a defensive position. Naruto got tired and dropped to his knees. He let his guard down and let his blue shell protect him from attacks. He opened his eyes wide when he heard a sound like a window breaking, and then a snake bit him on the shoulder. The boy grits his teeth and turns on his shield, which destroys the snake. He looked at the bite wound that was still bleeding and said, "That's going to hurt in the morning." "Kit, the poison from the snake is working too fast." Kurama yelled from inside him as he swirled his chakra and sent it through his host's body, pushing the poison away from his heart and lungs.
How much time do I have, Q?
Again, he winced as his shoulder hurt.
About an hour before you pass out.
He put his right hand on the snakebite, and it lit up deep green. How about now? Kyuubi rolled his eyes and said, of course. He slowed down his heart. 3 hours, tops. When the bite bubbled, he stood up straight and groaned. He looked up and looked into the eye of the toad boss. Who's the kid, Jiraiya? Uzumaki, Naruto, but first we need to focus on the fight, Gamabunta. I still have to buy you a drink. I'll make it up to you later. Gamabunta blew smoke from his pipe and said, whatever. Hop on, kid. What about Tsunade? Naruto asked as he jumped up on his head. Right here. Yelled the slug Sannin from atop the slug boss.
Shizune crouched behind her.
Jiraiya yelled, Su-chan, you're back. What pulled you out?
Shizune said Orochimaru called me old. She joked with a playful grin, before her eyes hardened as Manda, the huge snake boss, appeared with his summoner on his head.
Kabuto was on his knees next to him. The snake Sannin said with a sly grin as he watched Naruto's painfully angry face, just like the good old days, but with a little twist. Jiraiya whispered to the boy next to him, kid, do you have any more of that juice? It was great. Yes, but it only works for 2 seconds at a time while you pump as much chakra as you can. He made the seal in case someone close to him poisoned his chakra network, which was unlikely, but he couldn't be too careful. Now he had to figure out how to stop the Sharingan and the Byakugan from working. He pulled out a fistful, and Gamabunta jumped towards Manda. The snake jumped out of the way of the sword blow, but Tsunade hit it in the side of the head with a superhuman punch. Manda hissed and wrapped herself around the huge slug boss. Katsuyu, split up. Tsunade ran up the side of the snake, pulled her hand back and let it fly onto the snake Sannin's cheek, literally caving in his face and flipping away in time to avoid Orochimaru's Kusanagi slash. How are you doing, brat? She asked the former gang leader who had changed his ways. I'm fine, he grunted. Just hurry. Jiraiya snapped his fingers and did some hand seals. Naruto slapped a seal on his leg. Fire release, giant fireball technique. On cue, Gamabunta spat out a thick stream of oil that crossed the fire and went towards the snake and the person who had called it. Earth release, world's greatest earth defense. The snake boss put a lot of chakra into the move, and a dome of earth covered him to protect him from the attack. How the hell does he know that jutsu? Tsunade asked as she again jumped off and smashed her fist into the earth shell. The dome caved in and cracked a little, but it was slowly putting itself back together again. The woman dodged a chakra scalpel from Kabuto, who had jumped out, and had to keep flipping away and saying, do something, idiot. I'm working on it, he said as Gamabunta started hacking at the earth shell with great force. I bet you wish you knew the Rasengan now, Gaki. The light bulb above Naruto's head literally went off. Oh yeah, he said, sparing the hand that was stopping the bleeding from his shoulder and digging it into his pants to pull out his new seal. I've got this, he said. What is it? We're about to find out, he said as he shakily got to his feet and put his legs in strong positions, turning on his tree root seals. Gamabunta-sama, step back, he said. The toad boss hopped back and said, I hope you know what you're doing, kid. While the toad was in the air, Naruto grabbed the paper seal by its opposite corners and pumped as much chakra into it as he could. The boy's blue chakra cracked to the center of the seal and leaked out in a seal stroke before the whole seal lit up. Ninja art. Fuinjutsu, chakra beam. A thick beam of blue chakra shot out of the piece of paper and twisted and spun down towards the earth dome as if Kami had sent it through that small piece of paper. The chakra beam hit the dome, cracking it, and before it slipped in and hit the snake boss on the head so hard it dispelled, Orochimaru ran lengthwise away from the bright blue chakra beam. We need to leave, Orochimaru-sama. Kabuto yelled from across the clearing as he tried to keep up with the female Sannin and avoid Shizune's poison senbon. He closed his fist when a senbon hit his left calf, and Tsunade hit him with a devastating uppercut that sent him flying towards his master. Orochimaru gave his 4 opponents the evil eye and grabbed Kabuto's neck as he landed next to him. The man let go of the boy as he tried to get up, saying, "You haven't won anything, Jiraiya or Tsunade." The boy and girl just looked at him blankly. The man turned into the ground, and Kabuto ran into the forest. Naruto let out a sigh of relief and slowly sat down, then laid down. "Close one, huh, Gaki?" The boy swayed slightly. "You okay?" Tsunade landed next to them and kneeled next to the younger blonde. "Shizune, it's snake poison." She looked down at the boy and laughed at how sick he was. The snake's bite had torn off the right side of the boy's shirt, and blood spots and dirt stains were all over his shirt and trousers. The tips of his right and middle fingers were bright red, which showed that the new seal had at least a small side effect. She touched them and pulled her hand away because they were burning. Shizune knelt next to her and smiled at the boy as she put a gentle hand on his forehead. "You'll be fine, Naruto. You just need to rest." Naruto nodded and closed his eyes. "Start by stopping the flow of blood," he said, and they started to heal him. Purple ringed eyes popped open at the head of a room from a dark spot. The person sat on his throne in a relaxed way while his followers wore red clouds on their heads. He was squinting at something that only he could see, and the Akatsuki members waited patiently to hear what he had to say. The only sound in the room was the sound of his thin, raspy breaths. The man who was so powerful that he could make Hidan, a crazy Jashin worshipper, silently screw his lips together. "Tell us all your report, Itachi," he said in a deep, menacing voice that made the mad bomber Deidara instinctively lower his head and the other Uchiha clench his hand against the invisible force that pressed down on him. "I don't understand how a 12-year-old Fuinjutsu user could take on a Uchiha of your caliber and a Seal Master's natural enemy." His voice rose and shook the ground where they were standing. This time, Deidara squeezed his eyes shut before opening them and looking around to see if anyone had seen him. A woman with purple hair and a blank face looked at the man. The man waved for her to stay put. "Well? Tell us all. I don't see how you could beat the Kyuubi Jinchuriki," he said as he sat back down on his throne. Kisame, who had been miraculously healed, clenched his teeth in anger and couldn't look into the eyes of his leader. He knew when not to talk back. Itachi Uchiha, his partner, was the more stubborn of the two. He chose to look Nagato in the eyes with his normal 3-tomo Sharingan slowly spinning, saying, "Jiraiya the Toad Sage and Tsunade the Slug Sannin were with him. You caught the boy in his hotel room before that, a long time before that," Nagato said, looking like he had to stop himself from using one of Itachi's signature moves, the Rinnegan. "What stopped you from taking him out there?" The other people in the meeting, including Kakuzu, Hidan, Deidara, Sasori, Konenzetsu, and even Tobi, didn't want to be in the same situation as the two. Another person was there, a new member of the Akatsuki who went by the name Lightning Holder, or Rai for short. She was a skinny teenager with white hair that fell down to the small of her back and thin muscles. She had brown eyes that looked straight at Kisame, then at Itachi, and then, surprisingly, at Tobi. Her skin was the color of mocha. She wore silver steel boots that went up to her shins and thick silver gauntlets on her hands. Restraint seals, chakra-limiting seals, and weight seals were all over her body. It was said that, despite her huge steel boots, she could move like the wind and strike faster than expected. Tobi, Madara saw her fighting off a whole platoon of Kumo hunter ninja, which she did so easily that even Tobi was surprised. Rai tried to take over, but she failed badly. She didn't think that Killer Bee would come back from his mission early and fight her with the Raikage, The Cage, who had white hair and was very muscular, would say without shame that Bee would have killed him if he hadn't been there to help him do combination jutsu. Rai noticed that she had a lot of energy as soon as she became aware of the world and her surroundings. In fact, she had too much energy. So much so that when her parents called her down from her room to the living room, lightning surges came off her body and set fire to the stairs. Her civilian parents gave her to the cage at the time, to study and dissect with tears in their eyes. Under the knife, the surgeons and doctors found that her lightning affinity was so strong and real that she could light a bulb by running her fingers along a wall and keep it lit for a long time, until it exploded an hour later. She had to go through hard and painful training from the time she was 4 until he died and became Raikage. To keep her speed in check, she had to wear chakra gauntlets like Aizen and have weight seals put all over her body, which had to be replaced every so often. She was the one who went on missions with 2S ranks. The 19-year-old woman had a grudge against the village leaders of Kumo because they had taken her away from her parents. Her parents later died of heartbreak when they heard that she had tried to take over the village because she had a rare Kekai Genkai. When she thought about how Tobi took her down, using his intangibility, Kamui, chain weapon, and raw taijutsu experience, she felt a short wave of electricity go through her eyes. Even though she was made of lightning, she couldn't keep up with the man. As she came at him full speed, he gave her a firm snap kick to the chin. Then the attack started, leaving her bloody and bruised on the ground. She wasn't a proud woman, and her training didn't make her emotionless, but she knew that anyone who could keep up with her and make her attacks look like light love taps had to have gone through more painful training. Tobi told her that was just the beginning of his power and that he would teach her more if she joined his group of S-rank ninja. She laughed at the idea of being taught anything, since she had learned and perfected all lightning jutsu and beat all of her teachers, including the current Raikage. But the idea of being with people who were strong like her and being able to do hard missions was too appealing for her to say no. Nagato had told her that she was a free partner, which meant that she usually went on missions alone but was paired with someone if her skills were needed. Like Tobi and Zetsu, who worked best on their own. Back to Itachi and Nagato's current situation, he locked us out of the room and left through the window. You two can run incredibly fast, so why didn't you do that? Run at full speed, he told her, but she didn't answer. I see. You, Kisame, why did you lose so easily? He had gotten the whole report from Zetsu. A strange ninja just appeared out of nowhere, and he was much faster than me, Pain-sama, Rai said with a curious tilt of her head. A lot quicker than Kisame? Kisame is only a quarter as fast as me. If he had to be faster than him, he would have to be able to make electricity with his body, just like me, she said with a frown. That can't be true, Nagato yelled. You weren't giving it your all. I was, Kisame didn't say right away. Just about. Then why didn't you use your shark form or change the landscape to help yourself? I see. You didn't give the child or your opponent enough credit, Nagato said when Kisame didn't answer. It feels like a heavy weight, Kisame said. He leaned back in his throne and said, I see you two can't do this little job. They didn't say anything, but Zetsu did move away from Kisame when the shark man clenched his fists so tightly that they made a loud cracking sound. Nagato didn't seem scared at all as he said, I will give you two one more chance to redeem yourselves, but you will be going with Rai if this mysterious ninja shows up again. The two bowed slightly and Kisami's shoulders dropped in relief. But you will be going with Rai if this mysterious ninja shows up again, they both agreed. I will summon you when you are to collect the Kyuubi holder. Tobi wanted to go on the super hard mission. Rai said, maybe next time, Tobi, and patted the man's back gently, being careful not to hurt or electrocute him. The woman turned on her heels and started walking to her room in the Amikage's tower. Rai-san, where are you going? Itachi asked and walked up next to her, and Kisame did the same on the other side. Even so, she was not the least bit scared. I'm going to my room to get my bag because I heard there was a monster in the mountains near Hidden Chill, and I want its head. What about you? Her steel feet clicked quietly against the stone floor as she watched the electricity flow through the dim light bulbs above her. Pain-sama really needs to change these, she thought. She raised a silver gauntlet and tapped a bulb. Immediately, the bulb and the bulbs connected to it got brighter and brighter until the whole tower was well lit. Much better, she sighed. Kisame shrugged and asked, don't you think the dim lights add to the feeling of danger? Rai laughed and asked, where are we going, Itachi? We're going to fight. Would you like to join us before you go? Yeah, I've got some time for a spar, she said. She had been in the Akatsuki for a year and still hadn't sparred with anyone. In fact, this was the second time she had been to a Megakure. She had been spending most of her time and energy doing impossible jobs for Iwagakure and other villages, which drained her. Yes, she was very good at controlling her adrenaline and lightning, but she still liked the rush of a good mission. All-out spar. Rai raised an eyebrow at the person who spoke, Itachi, and asked, are you sure? I mean, it's hard to beat me. Trust me, Rai-san, you'll need everything you've got to beat us, Kisame said with a smile. At that moment, Itachi's eyes changed into the Mangekyo, a shuriken that spins wildly. Konoha. 1 week after they got there. Naruto was in his flat, sitting in his wheelchair and looking out the window at the village. He was thinking about what had happened in Wave while he was away. Deku gave him the weekly report from Wave, and he was happy to hear that a mall was being built and that Hidden Darkness was interested in making a trade deal with his country. Hidden Darkness was a village of shinobi that was built underground and linked by tunnels. This meant that the village already had a way to protect itself. Since the village liked to keep the peace, they preferred to make trade deals and let their people set up shops in other villages and countries. Near the site of the new mall in Wave by Hidden Shadow, a stone masonry was being built. The boy was trying out taijutsu fighting styles because he thought he might have a small chance of staying alive if he could at least fight with some coordination. He had been going to the library to find a style that would work for his slow, defensive, and weapon-using body. He had not yet found one. So he sent Deku to other places, like other villages or even caves, to find styles for him. The boy laughed when he thought about using Deku's personal fighting style. The Dark Shadow used a style called the Fourth Fist, which most shinobi had stopped using. It wasn't a popular style of taijutsu because it used suicide strikes and made the opponent see many places where he could attack back. For example, if Deku punched a person in the face and the person leaned back, the side of Deku's abdomen and chest would be open to a strike. However, if Deku quickly brought his elbow back to crack the opponent's cheek, the person would be too stunned to defend against a rising knee strike or a heel kick. Other times, cannonballs were fired from high buildings with his weight seals at full blast, or cannonballs were fired horizontally. Naruto wasn't fast enough or confident enough in himself to be able to do that. Well, when he jumped off buildings and wrapped himself in his iron blue bubble, like he did to Orochimaru, that was the closest thing to a cannonball. He would have to protect himself from attacks and hit his opponent with his snake rope and sleeping chain. His seal that gave Jiraiya control over his chakra for a short time was called his Perfect Control Seal. It gave the person who got it full control over his chakra, no matter how big or small that person's chakra was. The problem was that he could only make a seal last 10 seconds longer at a time. He solved the problem by stacking 30 seals on top of each other and putting them on his biceps. He kept one seal as a spare. That gave him full control of his chakra for an extra 5 minutes, no matter how much Kyuubi chakra was in his body. Think of chakra as a stream. Naruto's control could only slow it down to a fast flow, but the seal separated his chakra from Kyuubi's and slowed it down a lot. The seals were turned off, or dead, until he used genjutsu or a jutsu that required a lot of control. The Master of Seals had already made a seal to keep the demon in Yakumo under control. The custom seal he made put the demon in an illusion. This was hard enough on its own, but the fact that the demon was made of evil chakra instead of demon chakra made it even harder. He used an hour's worth of perfect control seals to put a seal right on her neck, which is where the demon usually comes out first. The seal kept turning the demon's chakra flow backwards, which made it confused and put it in a constant state of peace and happiness. That was the trick that was played on it, and it turned the demon into a plant that was frozen in place. The next thing the seal did was let Yakumo's chakra flow through the demon as it turned around. This meant that a little bit of the demon's chakra mixed with Yakumo's. The only thing that happened was that Yakumo lost all control over her chakra. This procedure was very dangerous, so he had to have perfect control of his chakra to seal a demon. So that he could be sure that the demon couldn't get out, he drew seals around his special place. Hinata was a big help. She worked hard to put perfect control seals on his arm just as the last one was about to run out. The boy added 3 more containment seals to his chakra beam seal to keep the heat in and move it into the attack, making the after effects so small that he could barely feel the heat on his fingers. He got the complex seal tattooed on his left palm, since his detection seal was already on his right palm. Naruto had been practicing with the chakra beam for a week and was trying to see if he could use specific affinities in his attacks. He found that he could use individual affinities, but he couldn't combine affinities that could cancel each other out, like fire and water or lightning and wind. The attacks were very powerful, and the fact that he didn't have to use his perfect control seal was a big plus. Another good thing was that he had improved his seal and used the time he had to relax and think clearly. He at least stepped back when Jiraiya said that the attack was just as good as the Rasengan. He was thinking about something when he heard a quiet knock on his door. His custom alarm had already told him that someone was there, but he had ignored it. He tapped the right arm of his wheelchair, and the door opened to reveal an Ambu ninja in a mantis mask who said, "It's been a while, kid." Naruto smiled and waved at the man. I could say the same thing, Mantis, he said. The ninja went into his room and looked around, grinning under his mask when he didn't see any mess. You have cleaned up for sure, that's for sure. I grew up, Naruto shrugged. Do you want some tea? I have this new brew. He stopped when the ninja waved his hand down. The man was talking about Tsunade Senju, the Hokage of 1 week, when he said, I'm fine. I'm here to tell you that Hokage-sama has called you. The woman took on the job reluctantly, saying that she was doing it for Dan and Nawaki. Why does she want to see me? Naruto asked with his eyebrows raised. Mantis shrugged and said, I honestly don't know, but the council elders are there with her, so it must be important. He walked behind the boy and was about to grab his wheelchair to push it out of the flat when Naruto stood up and said, oh yeah, you can walk now. Not for too long though, I'm still working on the bugs, the boy said as he ran his detection seal over his body and nodded when he felt all his seals in the right places. Let's get going. I don't want to keep Tsunade-sama waiting, he said as he grabbed his windowsill and jumped out of the window like he had done many times before. Mantis flashed up next to him and ran with him up to the roof. Naruto's defenses didn't go up around him because he knew the Anbu shinobi wasn't a threat. Both of them kept jumping from roof to roof in silence until they were in front of the cage's tower. Mantis walked the blonde boy right up to the Hokage's office door, ruffled his hair, and then went back to his job. Naruto walked up to the secretary and gave her a small smile. Nice desk, Shizune-san, the man said. The desk was full of papers, and the woman looked like she was about to pass out from being so tired. Is it oak or mahogany? He asked. The young woman laughed softly and gave the boy a short smile. Naruto-kun, it's good to see you're well. Tsunade-sama would like to see you now. She pointed to the door, and the boy took a deep breath to get ready for whatever was on the other side. He pushed the door open. Inside the room, the slug Sannin was leaning forward behind the Hokage's desk with her elbows on the desk and her cage's hat close by. Kohoru, Homura, and Danzo, 3 old people, stood to her right. All 3 of them just stared at the boy, who politely bowed to them without looking at them. Do you know why you are here, Naruto? Tsunade asked after a short pause. No, Hokage-sama. The woman smiled for a moment before smoothing her face. I'll get right to the point. Your performance in my retrieval was stellar, and Jiraiya suggested making you a ninja, maybe even evaluating you so you could be given a proper rank. Naruto kept his face still and told his heart to slow down. After personally reporting to the council on your performance, the decision was anonymous, she smiled, we have agreed to make you a ninja. When Naruto caught the Hitate, his eyes popped out and his head started to sweat as he gripped the cloth and metal. Kohoru said, aren't you going to say thank you? With just a hint of anger in her voice. The other counselors seemed to agree with her. All of the people in the room, including the hidden Anbu shinobi, watched as Naruto slowly walked up to the desk and put the Hitate on the table, then slid it back to the Hokage in a polite way. I can't accept this, he said with some hesitation. The woman sat back in shock at the boy's frown. What do you mean, I can't accept this? The council has agreed to make you a ninja, so you should be more grateful, Kohoru said, her poison bubbling slightly. Why don't you want to be a ninja anymore, Naruto? Jiraiya said it was your dream, Tsunade asked with worry in her eyes. Jiraiya said it was your dream, she added when Naruto clenched his fists behind his back. I don't want to be a ninja anymore, that dream is over, Naruto told Tsunade. Tsunade noticed how good the boy was at lying. He looked her in the eyes, didn't strain his voice, twitch his nose, or slouch. What gave him away were his short breaths. Thank you, Hokage-sama and honorable elders, for the offer, but I must decline. Kohoru was furious and couldn't hold it in any longer. How dare you turn down an offer from the honorable council? Naruto sighed and closed his eyes. Then he opened them and looked her dead in the eyes and said, yes, I dare. The older woman scowled and moved closer to him. You're going to take us up on our offer, she said in a quiet, sweet-sounding voice. Your skills in Fuinjutsu would be very helpful to Konoha. That's enough, Kohoru, Tsunade said, and she stared at the woman when she wanted to snap at her, daring her to say whatever insult she wanted to say. You're all dismissed, except for you, Naruto, she added. The Anbu left, but the counselors were more reluctant. It's clear that he doesn't see the chance for growth we've given him, Tsunade-sama, Danzo said. Give him to me, and all. She put her head on her chin and looked at the elders and said, not going to happen. The Warhawk said, as Hokage, you are too young and inexperienced to know what is best for Konoha. The slug Sannin stood up sharply and glared at the old counselors. I was chosen by the whole council to lead Konoha. They saw something in me that I didn't see and that you, she pointed at Danzo, definitely don't have. Now, leave before you three are carted out of here on one stretcher. Her nostrils flared and an angry blast of air came out. Well, I've never, Kohoru trilled. Tsunade cocked her fist back and hovered menacingly over her desk. She looked at the three of them and asked, did you just dare disobey a direct order from your superior? Before Kohoru could dig their graves any deeper, Homura quietly pulled the back of her sleeve. He gave Naruto a cold look and stood up with a flourish, saying, I guess we should go. The other elders stood up with him and followed him out the door. I hate those sour prunes so damn much, Tsunade fumed, rubbing her forehead to calm down. She looked up at Naruto and expected him to make at least a small joke about her age, but he didn't. She lightly kicked a small hole under the desk and a variety of sake and wine fell out. Glad to see Sensei still has these here, she said to herself as she took a cup and poured a glass of sake into it. The older the better, I always say, she sighed as she chugged the sake down. I don't want to be one anymore, he said with a shrug. You're not telling the truth. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Fine, since you're a civilian, I can't make you a ninja. You have to be a ninja if you want to be, whether you're a Jinchuriki or not. She looked at him carefully and sighed when he didn't give in. You know you can talk to me, Naruto. Just because we've traveled together doesn't mean I can tell you anything, Tsunade-sama, she said. This made Naruto laugh. I guess you're right, she said with sagging shoulders, but there's no reason why we can't at least be friends. Where is this coming from, Tsunade-sama? Asked the blonde boy with a raised eyebrow. This time, her eyes drooped and her shoulders sagged even more, as if she were carrying something heavier than the Hokage's title. I knew your parents. Naruto snorted, breaking the serious mood. Of course you knew them. Sandaime-sama knew them, Jiraiya knew them, I think Orochimaru knows them, and basically every one of the Hokage's personal guard knew them. How did you already know? Naruto crossed his arms and said, whenever I asked them, his guards, Jiraiya, or the Sandaime, they kept trying to change the subject, but if I asked a regular Anbu, he would just say he didn't know. Don't you know who they were? Yes, I think I know who my parents are. Tell me who you think they are, and I'll see if you're right. Uzumaki Kushina was my mother, he told the Hokage. I checked the migration log in the library, which I still don't know why it's there, and the only Uzumaki in Konoha were Mito Uzumaki, the first's wife, and Uzumaki Kushina. Mito is too old to be my mother, and I found out that both of them were Jinchuriki. The woman didn't want to ask him who he had. Yes, you're right, she said, coughing into her hand. And your father? She asked, wondering how far the boy would go to find out something. The fourth, Namikaze Minato. It can't be a coincidence that the Hokage's personal guard dances around the topic when I bring it up and that most people or that I was just randomly picked from the orphanage. Plus, I have blonde hair and a thing for seals, and I'm definitely not a Yamanaka. You do a lot of work. I don't like not knowing what's going on. Sensei wanted to tell you when you were much older, but I think you're ready to see what they left you now. She stood up and walked to the Yondaime's picture, where she opened a fairly large scroll. They didn't know they would die on the same day they gave birth to you, but they already left you everything they owned just in case. Here's a letter. The boy carefully took the letter and read it. To our son, who was born on the day we died. Dear son. Hey, it's your dad calling. I'm not sure why I'm doing this, but your mother and I, Kushina Uzumaki, agreed that we should go with our gut and write something down for you. In the trenches, it's our gut feelings that keep us alive. Probably, we're dead if you're reading this letter. Here, the line broke, as if the writer had been hit, since the letter D went almost all the way through the scroll, and the next words were written in a different, curlier style. Sochi-kun, Kushina says, don't listen to that idiot. Minato Koi has never been good at talking. What he really meant was that we wouldn't be there to help you. We both live in Konoha and are shinobi. Her words were a little shaky. I just want you to know that even if we can't raise you, we love you with everything we have. I'm trying to kiss my belly, but you can't see me. Naruto's legs felt weak as the blonde boy imagined the red-haired woman laughing nervously while her husband patted her shoulders. We're leaving this letter with Sarutobi Oji-sama so that she can give it to you if you ask about us when we're not there. I hope Jiraiya won't mess up as a godfather, and I know Makoto-chan, who is also your godmother, won't leave you in the dust. She might be quiet at first, but once you get to know her, you'll find that she has a very kind heart. If Makoto-chan is there, say, hi, to her. As the boy read on, a tear slowly rolled down his cheek. We've given you everything we own, even Minato Koi's boxers, he thought. He laughed quietly and sniffed, imagining that his mother was laughing. The estate and all of our investments will go to you and you alone, but I trust Makoto-chan to take care of everything until you're given. Anyways, how are you? I don't know how old you are now, but I do know that you got my genius for seals. Oh, and Minato's too, but mine mostly. A mum would know. Know that we will always be proud of you, no matter what you do in the future, whether you become a ninja, a regular person, or even a tyrant. So much do we love you. Never question that. But we hope you will do something good with your life. If you have Kyuubi in you, tell him I said hi as well. Kurama is very, very smart, so pay attention to him if you can. Well, we have to go. After this, a big red lipstick kiss with a heart next to it said, we love you. Namikaze Minato, who is the Yondaime Hokage, and Uzumaki Kushina, who is the princess of Whirlpool. After reading it, Naruto took a deep breath through his nose and closed his eyes. He had promised himself that finding out who his parents were wouldn't bother him. He felt like a 500-pound weight had been lifted off his chest and he could finally breathe. He quickly opened his eyes and wiped his tears away with his sleeve. He took a few deep breaths to get his breathing under control before he saw a small storage seal at the bottom. He opened it because he didn't want to think that his parents had set up a trap. When he said what he said, more tears came out of his eyes. Minato and Kushina, who was very pregnant, were having an impromptu date in Ichiraku. They were both smiling into a camera. Kushina waved her hand and smiled at the camera, defying everyone who thought she would be weak. Minato pulled her into a side hug and was about to feed her some ramen noodles as he quietly laughed to himself. Both of his parents were cute. They didn't leave me, they loved me, he said to himself as he opened a seat and sat down next to the window. His eyes were still on the letter from his parents, and he was trying to remember each stroke and feel what they were feeling as they wrote it. From the way his mother wrote, he could tell that she was a very emotional person who found it hard to hide how she felt about anything. If the fact that she was Uzumaki was a hint, she was probably also stubborn. His father's writing was more lighter, like he was instinctively getting ready to drop the pen and pick up his weapons. This showed that he was very protective, probably of what or who he loved. When I would sleep over at their house, Kushina would sing to you before she went to sleep, and she would talk about how cool you were going to be when you were born. You were their son, she would say, and Naruto would nod his head in agreement. They loved you more than anything they could puke up. Naruto slowly nodded his head and said, yes, if you don't mind. Tsunade quickly cleaned up her desk and told Shizune, her assistant, that she was leaving and wouldn't be back for a while. She patted Naruto on the shoulder again, and then she led him to the Namikaze Uzumaki estate.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.